Welcome back to CTRL-ALT-DEV, the podcast where two software company directors try to make sense of AI, automation, the rapidly changing world of technology. We look beyond the headlines and focus on what these changes actually mean for businesses like yours. I'm Sean Sale.
And I'm Paul Rhodes. And today we're doing something a little bit different. We haven't got a guest. There's no slides. Me and Sean were together yesterday and we were talking about what we're going to talk about today. And it kept coming back to one thing we've both been quietly obsessing with over the last few weeks, and that is the meal planner.
Yeah, we first touched on this a few episodes ago. Since then, both of us have gone away, built our own versions, tested them with our families, and even run workshops around the idea. The feedback was absolutely overwhelming. When started as a simple way to make meal planning easily, quickly turned into something much bigger by reducing food waste, avoiding duplicate purchases, and only buying what you actually need. Some families could potentially save thousands of pounds a year. And in our case, we estimate it could be worth up to £5,000 annually. So the real beauty of this is not asking people to do more work. We're simply making the whole process of meal planning, shopping, and using what you already have far easier.
Yeah, so pull up a chair. This is a meal planner update. We're going to talk about what we built, what it actually saves, and the reason why UK households are throwing real money in the bin every week. So Sean, this is my favourite topic, which is food, as you can tell from my appearance. And I think when we talked about this yesterday, one of the things that we both kind of alluded to as well, okay, what was the fundamental reason why we even thought about looking at meal planning? And it was ultimately waste. So then what we thought we'd do is overnight, we'd research basically food waste in our home country, which is obviously the UK. And we just deliver some stats as the opener just to set the scene, because I 100% approached this. My origin story was very much, I could see I was physically throwing food in the bin every single week, and I was like, even if it was only £5 a week or £20 a week, I think it was like, why are we doing this? This is ridiculous. What is it that's making us throw good food in the bin? And it fundamentally comes down to poor time management for me and poor planning. So hopefully, if you're interested in cooking and you're interested in food and you have an interest in AI, we can kind of help you today to understand how you can kind of use a thing called reverse food planning to reduce costs in your household. And we've both had really good results from this, haven't we, Sean? So I know that you've saved money.
It's I think nobody looks into, well, not as much as we have, I suppose, but looks into actually what you're spending, because generally when you have to buy food for your family, it's something you just have to do, isn't it? So sometimes, we talk about energy crisis and we talk about the fact that I think in July they're increasing the bills by £300 a year, which is shocking. Then you've got the situations that are going on with Iran and the US at the moment, and obviously the fuel as well. Sometimes the food sort of gets overlooked. Yes, we know it's going up. You get to hear about what's going on the actual shelves, the fact that the food is costing a bit more. But generally speaking, because we have to buy our food, do you actually quantify how much it's costing? As you rightly said, how much you're wasting purely because you're not managing what you're buying and what you're actually cooking on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah. And it's things like, I'll be totally honest and frank in this conversation. I've been a bit on a health kick at the moment. I'm on a very regimented, and I'm enjoying it. It's the sadistic thing. I'm quite enjoying the exercise.
Just for the listeners, I call him up sometimes and I say, I've got this idea for the podcast. And he's like, sure. Oh, I'm like, what on earth? And I have to sometimes think, what is he doing? But he's basically alluding to the fact that he's climbing some mountain or something.
No, I'm just walking up a slight incline is the reality. It's like, to anyone else, it's flat. To me, it's a hill. But yeah, I think that little segue gives a really good insight, doesn't it, into like, I think we use it. I mean, I'll also throw in some names of apps and stuff I use. So like, I don't know if you've come across it, Sean. I use something called Snoop, and it basically connects to your bank accounts, and you can set spending budgets. So obviously I have a groceries budget, but I also had an eating out budget because it's normal that we would have takeaways and we would have all this processed junk, and that's completely gone. So instead I've put it all into groceries, and I'm spending far less on groceries overall, but far more money when you add in takeaways and eating out and stuff. So yeah, I use that to monitor. Pulls through automatically from bank feeds. Like I've got about 7 different accounts on there, and it auto categorizes, so it knows that like certain brands are, eating out and certain brands that are groceries, and you do a bit of minor adjustment. It tells you how much budget you got left. But as a result of doing this reverse planning, I've cut down going to like the local convenience store. That was almost like a daily trip, and that was like 30 to 40 quid just for like half a bag of shopping. And then it's like the big shop, and then you've got like, we live in a world where you can order food in, groceries, whatever, at a click of a mobile phone. And so kind of you add takeaways in, and also for context for the listener, it's just trying to put things into perspective, because you might be a very different household to us, but like we're a family of 4, kids are 16 and 18. It's 4 adults. Do you know what I mean? They eat as adults. I know you're a family of 5, aren't you, Sean?
Yeah, 5. So it's interesting what you just said there, because a little bit of a segue, but you go back to COVID when we were all sort of stuck inside and having lots of Zoom parties and things like that, and quizzes and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but we tended to have a takeaway almost probably twice a week, maybe more.
Well, it was the only lift, wasn't it? It was the only okay. Yeah. I'm not saying it was the only lift. That's wrong. But didn't alcohol consumption surge through COVID? Wasn't like people just buying and buying and buying like.
But I think where I was going with this was that I think it certainly continued in our family. So
we didn't get out of that habit. If you're in a habit of having takeaways, I don't know, 3-4 times a week during COVID, now when you have it twice a week, you think that's being good potentially. I mean, that's definitely the headspace, was it? I think the other part of it psychologically is, I don't know if anybody else ever gets this, but sometimes I'm just lazy. I am just like, I've finished a working day. I know I work from home, so my kids don't think I ever work. I'm just a lazy person in his own house, but I do work. I do go on meetings, and sometimes you get to just fatigue, and it's the easy option, isn't it? I'd rather plonk on myself on the sofa with a beer, and I'd rather just not think about it. It's not fair on my family to say nobody else cooks. I think they think I won't let anybody else cook. I'm a bit of a control freak. I love cooking. So for me, it's a massive stress relief. And I think there's a ritual to it. And I think when you have a plan and you know what you're eating tonight and you've got all the ingredients, the excuses disappear, don't they? The excuse to say, I can't be bothered.
They do. And I think like you were saying there, that when you've got this kind of these automation, you've got these apps like Deliveroo and Just Eat, it does become easy, doesn't it? And as you say, you're so easy. And sometimes you just go, do you know what, let's just get a takeaway. And then and what's the typical response once you've had it? You go, I wish I hadn't had that. And
the cost of it, man. I'm a household of 4, and an average takeaway for us, it's embarrassing to say, it's like 60 quid delivered. Yeah. And it's oh my God.
We love Chinese, which is probably one of our pet hates. And you're right, £60 easily. Yeah. Or £80 if you're sort of splashing out with a few extra kind of starters. And I think, certainly in our household, the alarm bells rang. I mean, you mentioned this meal planner, what you were doing. And I happened to go home, speak to Kelly, and I said, just out of interest, how much are you spending a week on the shopping? And we were using Gusto, which in a sense, the meal planners kind of wiped that out as well. So we'll discuss that in a bit. But that was £80 from Monday to Thursday, just the evening meal. So that's not your breakfast, that's not your lunches. And then she was spending another £100 just general groceries. And then I was then spending money Saturday and Sunday, which essentially was taking the whole weekly budget to £250. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's £13,000 a year. Yeah. I was spending on food. Now, what was your typical spend a year? Do you have an idea? Or?
It's to be honest, the professional broadcaster would have prepared that stat, but I can say hand on heart, roughly around £200 a week. So if you work that out as 800 quid a month, and then do the maths, it's at least £8,000 plus another 2 months. So that's 16. So it's about just under 10 grand, right? And that excludes that excludes hosting. So one of the things I love to do is have family round for a meal. So our in-laws live close. My parents live close. I love barbecues. Like last bank holiday weekend, I did 3 barbecues. Each barbecue is 100 quid. Do you know what I mean? To just get all the stuff in, all the meat and everything.
Well, it is, unless you, like you say, you plan, because
exactly.
Because with this planning that we're going to discuss, listeners,
we will get round to it, listeners. We're just trying to set the scene here.
we're not suggesting you live on bread and water for the next couple of weeks.
No,
we are actually just being more efficient, and we're just in retrospect, we're actually got more in the shelves right now than we ever have, and yet the budget is almost half, which is just frightening.
And I think if you're listening to this, you're like, hang on a minute, Sean and Paul, I tuned into this to hear about technology. I don't want to hear you talking about your bellies. I was thinking, like, there is the AI part of this is what's made it easy. So we will come on to like the technical thing. We will come on to why we even talk about meal planning. But I think if we go back to setting the scene as well, that's a really good intro, I think, to who we are as people, Sean, and what we're doing and what we've been doing recently. Again, we're not here to preach. Like, this is not even advice. This is just saying what we've personally experienced and how we've used AI to make this process much, much easier. So like, if we go into the stats then, because I'll be totally honest again. Like, we spoke yesterday, and I said to you, didn't I, Sean? I said, having been involved in previous social good projects, food waste has always been on the agenda. Why don't we get Claude to go and do some deep research, cite all references, and basically give us some stats to just kind of set the scene for the listener today? So what I'm going to read you, I am going to read it verbatim because it's a lot of information. I'll try and pull out the key facts, but some of this stuff is genuinely like jaw-dropping, and you kind of need to take a minute to take it all in. So I'll go through it. Sean, I know you've got some things to interject as well. So
I've got a coffee.
Yeah. So the first stat that we found, and this is from the majority of it comes from an organization called WRAP, WARP, but also there's some government policies in here as well and reports, and we can put all this in the show notes. So first stat for you, Sean, UK households throw away 6 million tons of food and drink per year. That's roughly 210 kilograms per household and 88 kilograms per person per year. Well, I can tell you, I am heavier than 88 kilograms. So the equivalent of my body weight is thrown away a year in waste just for myself. 4.4 million tons of that food that was thrown, 73% was edible. Okay. So things like bread, meat, the edible parts of fruit. The other 27% is genuinely inedible, like eggshells, bones, peels. Households are by far the biggest contributors. So this was really interesting to me. I was thinking, a bit like recycling, or electricity. Like, how many office blocks do you go past and the lights are on 24/7, and the waste of commercial and industry? No, households are the biggest contributor to food waste in the UK, 58%. And it makes sense, because if you're a commercial practice, you want to minimize food waste. It's a big part of your production, isn't it? You want to use everything you possibly can.
So my stats then, my mathematics in my head, is that me wasting £1,000 a year, or is that more? If you took
the rough number, if they're saying that, here we go. This is where I look really weak at maths. I think I can't answer that off the top of my head. I'm looking at too many percentages on screen, and I'm like struggling.
I think it's roughly £1,000 a year, which is when you look again about the energy going up in July, £1,000. So I mean, you can argue that we should be more sustainable with our own energy, etc. as well. But that's remarkable.
Okay, there is an answer to your question here, Sean. It says the total cost of food waste every year is 17 billion. Okay.
Wow.
In another study. So 6 million tons equates to 17 billion of food binned every year. It's an average of £1,000 a year for a household of 4. That's the stat that came from WRAP. And this is 2025 key facts. And then per person, the average UK person wastes food equivalent to 3 meals a week. As a nation, we throw away what would fill at Wembley Stadium 8 times over each year. So like we approach this for everyone's context as just, hang on, when we do a week where we meal planned manually, we would spend less and we would eat what we bought 9 times out of 10, but we were still throwing stuff away. And so then it became the question of, okay, well, what about our own budgets, our own food waste? And then we looked at the kind of, is it the macro level, like the higher level? And you look at this sort of stuff and you're like, this isn't just Paul and Sean. This appears to be like a problem across the UK. And I would imagine across the globe, not just the UK, because there are perishables. There are things you buy that go off. And then it says for context, which is where you were coming from, Sean, on grocery spend, the average UK household spends £5,296 a year on food, £3,877 on groceries, and £1,419 eating out. That's roughly 16% of household budgets. And that comes from a report from Nimble Fins in 2026 this year. Now, me and you have both said we're spending 3 times that on groceries. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That is a small amount to me. £4,000 a year on groceries. It doesn't seem a lot, but obviously there's different incomes and everything taken into account.
Well, I looked into last year for this podcast. So I did a bit of research, and I spent last year, get this, £5,000 on takeaways.
On takeaways?
Takeaways.
Could have bought a car.
I know. That's the whole year.
Wow.
I mean, that is A, ridiculous, and B,
I mean, we're not here to pick a fight, are we, with Uber Eats or takeaways or anything like that? But I think it is just saying when you analyze anything, you see the true cost of it, don't you? Like if you look at anything annually, when you see it weekly and you go, oh, we spent £25 at a certain restaurant chain beginning with an M and Arches, you go, okay, that was okay. But when you annualize it and you say it was £5,000, that's a holiday. That is a holiday.
And that's exactly what your meal planner, because everyone listeners here, it was Paul's idea, this, and it's just grown. This thing has gone a bit crazy now. I've done a workshop on it, a presentation. Paul's done it as well. And this is why this whole podcast has come together, because I was quite concerned, Paul, at the time. I was concerned that there's 2 professional AI guys in the room listening to me, and I was thinking, I knew that they were already in the room because they'd obviously introduced themselves to myself. And they said they're really looking forward to this podcast. They knew the title. And I thought, are they really interested in this? Because it seems a bit low level. Yes, Paul and I do the more technical stuff. Of course, you know that from previous podcasts. But this was something that was touching certainly Paul's heart, my heart. And as Paul's just alluded to, in retrospect, every single person on this planet is accountable, and they should be planning better. And anyway, the fascinating conclusion was, Paul, they were absolutely in awe of what I came out with the slide deck and everything else. And
yeah. And
how much I've, obviously I haven't got to the end of the year yet, but how much I've saved since January to May right now in 2026.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is just, I mean, it's a really good overview as well as to what's coming in this podcast episode, because we will tell you exactly what we've done and the origin story and stuff in terms of why it gets wasted then. So basically it doesn't get used in time. So the food that you buy, half of the avoidable waste is just, it wasn't used in time. It was perfectly edible when you purchased it. You didn't use it. Sometimes people cook too much, they over prepare, or they actually serve too much. So then it goes in the bin as a result of, rather than freezing it or keeping it. So I'll come on to batch cooking and like what we typically do and stuff in terms of, I definitely cook larger portions because I want it in the freezer. I want it in the fridge for next day. My kids have an absolute disdain for having the same meal 2 days in a row. I'm an 80s child. That was like, you were lucky if it weren't 3 or 4 days in a row. It was like,
just going back to the 80s. I mean, sorry, Mum, I'm not belittling you, but did your mum sort of say, did you sort of have the same ritual every single week? So Monday,
it was always, and also meal times. Meal times were literally, it was like regimented. It was like 5:30 every day. We had dinner, which now like our meal time. I mean, this is not a healthy way, I don't think, but my wife scorns at the idea of eating before, say, 7 p.m. is like too early for her. She eats really late. And like last night we made homemade pizzas, the dough and everything. And it was like, I think we ate at 10, but then I felt like, because of the hot weather, I felt like I was being a bit more Spanish and cosmopolitan because it was too hot to eat or cook in the,
Sorry, I just had a bloody phone call there. Perhaps someone was interested in our meal
That's
plan.
all right. So it's overcooked, it's overprepared, served too much. And those two reasons, they cover 80% of why food is wasted. So that's the bullseye. 8 out of every £10 of food we throw away comes down to those two failures: buying things we don't use or cooking more than we need. And then basically that is the crux of what we're doing. What was interesting as well is who wastes the most. So younger adults classed as 18 to 34 waste more food than any other age group, according to the findings, which is insane. I would have thought, again, I guess it's being a 40-year-old, but I would have thought younger people were a bit more eco, a bit more like moralistic, a bit more. Well, just like at the end of the day, there's people around the world who can't even afford food or are living on, like a much lower income, much more. And it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm just casting aspersion of like, was I an idealistic younger adult? No.
But maybe it comes back to what we were just saying there, that, Monday was chops day, Tuesday was sausage, beans and potato. And we were very much 80s kids and we stuck to the meal plan. And
Staples, man.
Yeah, it was the same.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you didn't need a meal plan because you ate the same thing every
exactly.
Monday.
so you knew. So basically, our parents were pretty good with their food budget. Yeah. Whereas now, you swing through to COVID, we all were like having restaurant, having sort of like takeaway foods 2-3 times a week. Going to getting your supermarket groceries was probably the most beneficial thing that you ever had in that week, and the most exciting thing. And like you say, kids in that era, maybe they just, like you say, it's so easy now just to order delivery or just eat or whatever. Well, maybe that's why.
I think I've heard countless stories of friends who've got they're not kids anymore, obviously younger adults at university. I went to uni. Oh my God, it was like, do you remember student cookbooks were like how to live off a pound, how to make, like you really like how to make beans on toast as if you needed a cookbook and all that sort of stuff. The trend apparently, and again, this is all third party stories, but I definitely know one of my friend's kids orders Uber Eats at least 3-4 times a week as a university student, and I'm like, wow, how can you afford that? And then secondly, apparently the thing is that when you walk into a kitchen now, when I went to uni, everybody had a milk with their name written on and all the food was labelled. There's like 6 air fryers and everybody's got an air fryer is apparently the thing. And so when I went into a bookshop at Christmas, it was like student air fryer cookbooks. And I was like, who on earth's got an air fryer? And then the cashier was like, you'd be surprised. Everybody's like, they must have a tool to go to you. And I'm like, this was a generation where I was living on pot noodle. Do you know what I mean?
Have you got an air fryer, Paul?
I've got an air fryer. To me, it's like, I get it. I totally get it. But I'm like, my opinion of university students is the young ones. You should be like Rick Mail and Aid Edmondson, and you should be like thrifty, and you should be like have a few years of absolute like breadline living to then appreciate. If you're going to uni and eating with an air fryer, it was just basics, and like we would cook a meal 1 day per week per student. So we lived in a dorm of like 6. And then, somebody would do spag bog one night. And it was so nice because you didn't have to cook. And then we'd do the washing up rotor and all this. And it was a lot more communal. 6 people are independently cooking in air fryers. It's not, where's the sit together and have a chat? Where's the kind of like bonding and like the family setup? I don't know. Maybe I am very romantic.
I think that comes back to what you were saying. It's all everything's speed now, isn't it? We are getting on. We are coming around to this the AI side, guys. Seriously. But it is everything is about speed, and I do worry about
convenience as well. It's about if you go in a supermarket, probably at lunchtime, everyone's going to the meal deal. Why are they going to meal deal? To eat on the go. Like, I know sitting down for 10 minutes and eating a sandwich. They're eating while they're driving or they're eating while they're walking. It's like that whole thing.
Don't get me onto meal deals, because I mean, I didn't know this. The stat that we're talking about stats at the moment. I think they said the stat is one sandwich in a meal deal, we won't mention the particular supermarket, is equivalent to 5 cheeseburgers from
the restaurant. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that on the BBC. Yeah. The salt and everything in it. Yeah. And it was like Posh Bakery, wasn't it? But it was a perception of it was a premium product. And so it appeared healthy because of the way it's marketed. I mean, again, don't get me started on food marketing, but yeah, like you say, it was actually better off eating a cheeseburger than having one of these things that was pitched as a premium, like bagel or whatever it was. It was ridiculous. I'll just wrap up this section and we'll get onto AI. So households with children often linked to last minute meal changes. I get that. Your kids go, I don't want to eat that. You know, you say you've planned for this and they go, I don't like that. And I'll talk about fussy eaters in a minute. People who are eating more meals outside the home than in it. So again, going about restaurant eating, takeaway, disposable income. And then people who use convenience methods for shopping, like online, click and collect, subscription boxes, you mentioned one, and delivery apps. So the whole nature of which we buy food has changed massively. And then you've got choice. Like, let's hark back to the 80s. I'm fairly certain I ate liver and onions quite like often. I ate like what I would class as pretty basic meals.
I never liked it
regularly. No, never liked it. But it was like you didn't walk into a supermarket, or a supermarket that we go to now didn't even exist. But you didn't walk in and have like a world aisle. You didn't have like all the choice that we have today is insane. Like you could almost have paralysis and go back to just eating the same thing because there's so much choice. So it's kind of all this plays into it. So their own research from RAP, just to wrap it up, is unambiguous. So basically, and then we'll move on to the sexy stuff, as we call it. But lower levels of waste are associated with various food-related behaviours, including meal planning, list making, buying less of other items when purchasing special offers, use of the fridge to store apples makes them last longer, and cooking the right amount of like rice and pasta, or using leftovers. So this all came from RAP. And then the story that like we're talking about today is standard meal planning solves overbuying, and you decide what you're eating, you write a list and you buy only that. But that's good, but it doesn't touch the food you already have in your cupboards or your fridge that's going off. And that is the problem. 5.6 billion pounds of food every year is wasted because it's not used in time. So what we did is, I didn't even know it was a thing, Sean, is it's called reverse meal planning. And so reverse meal planning fixes the root cause directly. So you start with an inventory of what you already have and you own. So your pantry, your fridge, your freezer. I mean, I've got to the point now where I have 15 minutes every Saturday and I update my list, my inventory, and I feel smug going through my cupboards and listing it. I'll tell you how I do that. I identify what's closest to date. So if I've got, I don't know, last night we cooked pizzas. So I know I've got a tub of half-used passata. Yeah, mozzarella, opened. Yeah. So my meal planner knows it's opened. So it will choose things that will use those things up first. And it's fantastic because if the kids have opened, say, a big tin of sweet corn or pineapple chunks, and then it knows it's there and it's going to prioritize those things. So, and you plan your meals around those items first. And then the shopping list is actually the gap fill. So the shopping list isn't starting from scratch every week. It's not the starting point. It's instead, you've already planned you're going to do these 7 meals. And I've now included mine to do breakfast and lunch because I work from home. And I never did that before. And then what it does is it backfills it. So I have staples that I know I have to buy every week. Things that like toilet roll, all that sort of stuff. You know, the stuff, the consumables that aren't necessarily food.
So I use Amazon for that. You use Amazon for that. So
do you?
Yeah, because just to cut in, you can, I mean, I've always done it, but again, I suppose because they're subscription based, you just get used to that. And of course, it just saves up the clog of having so much in your trolley as well.
Yeah. It's a really good point. I've never thought about bulk buying on things like that. I mean, that's why people go to Macro and stuff in it as well. Buy it for 6 months.
And of course, some people I know probably might use a car and use the delivery services, but I myself and Paul both like going down the aisles and choosing our food and putting it into the trolley. We love that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
those sort of kind of what I call the boring items, like the toilet roll, your fabric softener, your washing up powder, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, bulk buy that.
Yeah.
It's just sorry, that was just a little cut in there.
No, it's good. And I think so if we close that section off as being, hopefully we've done a service to this problem of food waste. That's what we want to set the scene with. I think we can very much go on to almost like, well, what happened then? Why did it change? How did it change? We've talked about this concept of reverse meal planning. So my experience was, and I've talked about this in the previous podcast, and I'll just do it as quickly as I can. I used to block out into my calendar Sunday mornings and literally like 2.5 hours. And it would be, I love cooking. That's the big caveat to all this, is I really, really like cooking. I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy the process and everything else. So I would go and grab 3 or 4 recipe books off my shelf. I've got I think loaded into the AI is 17 recipe books. So I'll go and pick 3 or 4 and I flick through. And my intention was always to cook a meal I hadn't cooked recently. I think it's the aversion to the 80s where it was like, the same meal every week, every Monday. So I would go through and I'd flick through literally just like it was, I was shopping for clothes or whatever. And I'd go, right, I fancy that. So what I was doing was I was then having to write down all of the ingredients that it needed. I knew only mentally, what I thought I had in the house. But I would go through and go, right, I need chicken, I need this. And then it'll say something. I go, yeah, we don't have that. Go to spice drawer after I built it and I found out I already had one. So I was double buying some things. Other things I thought we had, but I used them for another recipe item that was earlier in the week. So it was like, oh no, I've already bought creme fraiche for this, but I'm going to use it in this meal. I haven't worked out. So I sit there with black coffee and then I'll go and do the shop. And we have in our kitchen, we have like a whiteboard and it says everybody's activities for the week. And then it says what the meals are. So we were saying Fraser has football on a Thursday night at 7 p.m. So I know I need to start cooking at 5:30 and it needs to be like a 30-minute meal and he needs to eat at 6. And then we need to leave at 6:30. So I had all this mentally, the rhythm of when kids are at school and when they're off school. So I was doing that for years. Like my wife was really adamant about the meal plan. So we've been meal planning for years. The difference is this concept of reverse. I always started with a blank sheet of paper and wanting to eat good food, I was very conscious of, I would buy it and then I would, be duplicating stuff, but I wouldn't be looking at what we had is the point. So I was doing that. And then me and Sean started talking about Claude co-work, which was the big change. And I was like, I wonder if I could get Claude co-work to look at my calendar, find out what activities are going on, also have an understanding of what I have in my house, and have an understanding of the types of recipes and the actual diets that we like to eat. So, for instance, I hate fish. I've never been into seafood. Yeah, I cannot stand it. So what it does, because it has nutrient qualities, omega-3 and all this sort of stuff, it will create very like Cajun spiced cod. It'll do like firecracker salmon and stuff. So I love spice and that sort of thing. So anyway, I've digressed a bit, but my son's incredibly fussy. He won't eat vegetables. Like my days. Like if I cook
which child isn't fussy? I think.
So if I cook a stir fry to get all those vegetables in, he just will pick at the meat and leave it, and he won't go hungry. Let's be honest. He will eat just junk instead. So my job is to fill him with nutrients, not so he goes and grabs the junk. So it's really good at going, actually, if you create this, all the vegetables blended into a sauce and he won't know, and he's had these, so you can do all these cool tricks of the trade. So often he doesn't know he's eating vegetables, but he is. But all this goes together to go, okay, Paul, here's your meal plan. And then the question is, how do you do the inventory? Like what was the thing? So the way I did it and the way I do it every week is, I've spoke about it before. I use audio dictation. So I use Whisperflow. And I literally stand in front of my cupboard, open the door, This makes me sound like such an anal arsehole. But basically, I stand there and I pull out all the tins and I talk and I go, 2 tins of tin tomatoes,
certainly
a tin of, but you know, like the beans that you have in the cupboard that you haven't ever used, or like this cannellini beans and this quinoa, is it called quinoa, is it? And there's this, and they're like dry packets and all this sort of stuff. It has, after 15 minutes, a complete understanding of everything from fridge to freezer. And then it goes off on a Sunday morning and it goes through all the recipe books, all the inventory, all of the week's plans ahead.
Just to cut in so you can tell the listeners, you say goes through all the cookbooks. Are you pre-populating it with the cookbooks, scanning them in, or are you just using AI to say?
No, I literally audio dictated everything. So I said, like, so one of my favorite books, if you haven't got it, it's amazing, is a guy called John Watts. He's got 2 cookery books that I own. One's called Midweek Meals, and the other one is like, I think it's just John Watts Cooks or something like that, or Cooking with John Watts. But oh my God, you put them out and they are restaurant quality. They aren't just like good meals. They taste like you know what you're doing. So all I did is I gave it, like, we have like a Wagamama cookbook, you know, this sort of thing. So all I did is I dictated the titles and the author. Hairy Dieters is about 4 cookbooks I really like.
Do you need to do that? Because presumably
you don't have to, because
AI is this massive collection of information.
No, 100%. Well, the thing is, this is me again, I guess decades of cooking since I really went to uni and grew up. Before uni, I was a slob. Like, when it came to the kitchen, my mum did everything. We wouldn't let us wash up or anything. You know, really the worst version of myself when I was 18. Went to uni, came back and knew how to cook. And then it was a case of, okay, not all recipes are equal. They're really not. Like, you could go onto Google and say, I've got these things, and you'll come up and you look at ratings and stuff and you cook it. And some of the stuff you cook is just, it's okay. So I've found this curated list. I've owned hundreds of recipe books, and these are the ones I've kept. So what's really important to me is it knows the author and the title. And then what it does is it quotes back the page numbers. So it literally says, so I haven't told it what's in the book. Equally, it will often say, in this style, so it will then reference another like website. It might do something off BBC Good Food, and it will say it's a, you know, so and so style dish, but you get to do it. So ultimately, what I end up with is, and we use Notion. So on Notion, I end up with, here's your week from an activity perspective, from a meal perspective, from a family planning perspective, and then effectively it goes onto an app that we've talked about called Bring. And it adds all of the ingredients of what I need to buy. But the number of ingredients is way less because it's only the stuff that we need to buy and nothing else. And then the gap,
the great thing is, just wanted to cut in here, the great thing about Bring is, guys, is that it's almost like it's a push button type scenario.
It's one click, isn't it? You just click it, as they say, it's in your trolley. It's really easy.
So if you need 2 apples or 5 bananas, it will give you the number. And you just, like Paul says, you just click it and it just disappears, so you know it's in your trolley, which is just...
It's really good.
It's
really nice app.
Crossing things out. It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. And then what I did as well is I added another page in Notion, which was called Weekly Staples. And that's where I put toilet roll, flash wipes, you know, those sorts of things, cat food. So it takes the weekly staples. It takes what you need to buy to create these recipes. It knows the recipes. It knows what's going on. It says, right, Paul, Erin's got point, so you're going to do a quick meal. Wednesday, nothing's on, so you're going to do you're going to spend, I'm going to give you a 2 hour, and I'll ask it for like one day a week. I want a 2 hour cook. I want to stand there with feeling like master of ceremonies. Yeah, exactly. So that was the manual to the Notion. To the AI into like I'd call that the MVP. That was like my minimum viable product was, could it do this? And honestly, this is where we saved money. So because it was just that slight change of reverse meal planning, and it also came up. So I'm proud to say I shop at Aldi. I really, really like Aldi. And it will come out and it will say, the estimate for this shop is £86 to £90. And when I go to the till, it'll be like 106 quid. But I know I've still done Audi middle aisle. I've still gone down and bought something I didn't necessarily need. But it's so close and so accurate. And then one week I tested it and thought, I'm only going to buy what's on Bring. And I did that, and it was within £5. It was incredible. And I was thinking, how has it even done that? And it's obviously, again, like you said, it's got context, it's got the wider thing, it knows what you're trying to do. All of this as well, the key thing to get this across to people is, in my setup, it was Notion, it was Cowork, right? Claude Cowork built by Anthropic. This is all natural language. All I'm doing is talking to, I haven't done any programming, even though we stand here with software developer backgrounds, Sean. This is just natural language. I'm just telling it, can you help me do this? Can you schedule it? What about this? And then once you have it up and running, then you iterate. This is where it's really important. If we talk about the concept of a minimum viable product, that's your first version. I always call it iteration 0. I'm literally now on iteration 10 because I've adopted a different diet with different dietary rules. My son's a fussy eater, so I often now cook like a base. So I'll cook like the base sauce or whatever it might be for a curry, and then I'll dish out his bit into a different pan, and then I'll go crazy with like vegetables and spinach and whatever I want in that curry. So I get something that's full of what I need in my diet, and then he'll still get a really tasty chicken curry or something. So if you're a vegan, if you're keto, whatever it is, you can upskill it and give it context as your dietary needs. And we've done just simple things like we're really cutting down on ultra processed food. Like I've eliminated it entirely from my diet. I haven't eliminated it from anyone else's in the households, but because of that, that's why I have the base sauce, because I will not put anything that's ultra processed into my food for the next 5 days.
The sauces that generally are the...
Yeah, so I make everything home, mate. We made pizza and I made the dough. Why should I buy it with loads of additives, preservatives, chemicals in? And it took, and we go for a walk. So it's like, by the time I come back, it's proved. So yeah, I sound like I'm I don't know, self-righteous. I'm not. I'm just trying to do better, if that makes sense.
Well, it does make me laugh with your lad there, because my young lad goes, "Oh, we've got AI food this week," and I go, "What do you mean AI food?" And he goes, "Because they decide." But so I sat down with him and said, "Look, you're getting variety. What's the problem?" And he said, "Well, I don't like some of the meals." And I go, "Okay, well then let's tell me what you don't like, and I can tell Claude,
exactly
that specific meal." And that is one of the massive benefits there, because as you rightly say, I can then feed back how they reviewed the food. Did they like it? And as you rightly say, Claude is memorizing everything we put in there, so they'll know that Ollie actually would like that dish, or Freddie liked that, or Jasmine was actually quite like the vegetables with that sauce, because actually she doesn't really like vegetables, but it hid the taste of the Brussels sprouts, etc. So they are grasping it, and actually, like you said, I won't eat, or I'll try not to eat any of the treat foods, because we're still. This is a great thing, listeners, and we're not sort of saying you're not going to buy the treats for the kids, the ice cream.
Yeah. I'm not going to deny those, the things that I ate.
No,
but I'm trying to. It's that classic thing of lead by example, isn't it? Is do what I do, not what I say. I can say to kids, you shouldn't eat crisps, you shouldn't eat biscuits, all this sort of stuff. I know someone will be listening and go, you're a bad parent. But I think the reality is, at a certain age, those are treats, like you say, ice cream after dinner, that sort of thing. But I'm just choosing not to. I'm taking a conscious thing, and I'm still going to buy it. So I still buy fizzy drinks for them. I haven't had a fizzy drink for like over 30 days. I've got no interest in fizzy drinks at all. I don't miss it, but I'm not going to say to them, you can't have, one of the top brands of carbonated drinks, because I'm not. And I think that's like militant. I think it's like, I'm just going to be the change, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So I think where I've seen a difference as well, because this is kind of, again, our Paul saying is very anal about it, but you can even tell Claude where the fish and the meat is, where the tea bags are. So in retrospect, you can tell it the way to, so it makes it, so you don't have to keep going back on yourself going, oh gosh, I've missed that. It's down aisle 5. I mean, because I mean, I don't mind. Generally speaking, I see it as an opportunity like for others to go out, to go shopping. Yeah, it's a pain sometimes to pack the shopping up. That's probably something that I suppose the Ocados and the deliveries do. But I do enjoy sort of getting out of the house and sort of go and get the weekly shop. So for me, the planning now has got so much easier. As Paul says, you know, you've got to keep your PC on, by the way, or when you turn it on.
Yeah. If you're using if you're using co-work, it runs. You keep your computer away. You close the lid and everything. But
but when Paul and I wake up, it's all been done for you. And as the weeks have gone on, I mean, for example, now on a Sunday, we always love as a family a Sunday lunch, and we like to sit down together. We've always done it. It's the 80s kid.
Amazing. The smell in the house is incredible, isn't it?
Exactly.
You know, the Sunday roast smell.
We've gone from one chicken, because we tend to do chicken mostly, to 2 chickens. And the reason why is because I was using the leftovers for pesto, pasta and chicken. I was using it for sandwiches because I love chicken sandwiches. And of course, it's quite a healthy food anyway.
Full of protein in it.
Exactly. So now I do 2 chickens. And you talk about waste. Nothing gets wasted. Carcass then gets used for chicken stock. We then use it to have homemade chicken soup. Honestly, it's been a game changer for me from the point of view of my goal was, I turned to Paul and I said, I can't believe we're spending this much money on food. He then said, I've been doing this, have a go. And it's just spiraled. And this thing now, it's almost got legs now, because everyone I speak to now goes, can you give me the prompts? Can you tell me how to set this up? How can you set Claude? It's
I mean, that's the thing, is like we talked about, like, so we went from manual. So I went from manual planning a meal planner to eat different foods every week to try and cut down on takeaways, was probably the motivation of the classic eat healthier. Then I automated it with Notion and co-work to get reverse meal planning into the equation. And then the next iteration is I've actually built an app. So just for myself at the moment, but I used all of the knowledge that it already had to create a product requirements document. So back when Peter Lowe was on, he talked about the virtues of product requirements document. So I got Claude to create that. And then I took it to Claude Code and I went to bed. And 9 hours later, when I woke up, I had a fully working app with just a few tweaks to make. So my total investment time was 15 minutes to build an app. It runs on my local machine. I'm sorry to say this, but it does replace Bring. So it does. One of the, we had Craig Helen on last week and we were talking about lean. So one of the bottlenecks that I found was really trying to get it consistently to add it to Bring. Now, there's probably other shopping apps with APIs and all this sort of thing, but I was like, if I take this now out of Notion and I have the same setup, so I have an app, but it has the inventory list, it has all the staples, it has all my recipes. So everything I created as an MVP in Notion as pages are now screens in the app. And then it comes up and you go generate meal plan. It goes through the same prompts around, and you can edit the prompts and say, fussy eater, avoid oily fish, seafood, that sort of thing. It does exactly the same thing, but this time the one-click shopping list is already built into it. So there's no secondary thing. It doesn't talk to Notion. It's totally standalone, isolated. And then that's what I've been presenting at workshops, is to not to say use my meal planner, not to say anything like this, but like this is how you can use these processes of AI to say you can prototype something very manually. You can use something like Claude Co-work, like you said, the computer has to be on. And then you can actually take it a step further when it's working for you. And you want to then use lean principles to say, where's the waste in this process? How can I improve it? What's the 1% improvements? For me, the blocker was it didn't always load into Bring, and I would be sat there manually typing ingredients because the API doesn't work with Claude.
Yeah, it's only
it uses Chrome.
It's a basic Chrome AI, just for the listeners. It's Claude is a bit. It works well. I mean, I struggled a little bit with it when I said to you, Paul, that sometimes it's not very good at telling you need 2 lemons, so it puts lemon on the image.
Yeah.
But I actually needed to, and then I went back to Claude and I said, look, can you make sure? And it did do it the second time. So I get what Paul's saying there. What I like about what Paul's saying there about him building an app there, I he's probably doing this already and he just hasn't said it, but when you're talking about the inventory stock control, so actually what's on the shelf, if he's buying a certain spice there, surely it's obvious that he could then suggest that goes straight into the inventory planning.
Well, this is the thing. So, like, if you, that's the next logical. I mean, I was on a yet another out of breath walk talking to Sean, and we were talking about, well, it could auto add it. You know, like you talk about. So you have the concept in software development of MVP, then you have your iterations, and then you have another concept called roadmap of like future ideas. Not for now, but things it could do. So it could definitely say, actually, on a Saturday, all you're doing is being in the human in the loop to check the list. Because actually what I've done is I've said, if you've cooked this, I know you've used it on Monday. And then if I've added these things for you to buy and you go and buy them, I know they've come back in. So actually the stock in and out, like a factory, you know, like a warehouse, should be predictable. It should be that you don't actually need to do anything other than go, oh, actually, I ate lunch and you didn't know about it. So I did use the ham or whatever it might be. So, but I think all of this is coming around to, it's not about the tech. It's about a human doing this thinking every single day about what a family is going to eat and what to buy is exhausting. That's the point. So we're trying to take mental load off it. The system does it in seconds. And then it's going back to our 10-80-10 principle of we spent 10% of our time planning. We spend 80% of it is done by AI. It will get to the point where potentially it does the shopping as well and it arrives at your door. But I'm not interested in that. Like you said, that's a future thing it could do. And then the final 10% is the review, isn't it? And so the point isn't the tech.
And as you said, you know, it's reducing duplicate purchases. It's building the shopping list automatically. It's remembering the family like. So, in other words, yes, Paul likes cooking. And of course, he's probably giving most of it or most of AI, you know, what he actually wants to sort of make and prepare. But he is thinking about the rest of his family. It is including cheat days and treats for his kids, reducing food waste, and of course, as you said, saving time and mental effort. So, and I go back to the thing for me is, yes, I want to make sure that everyone is happy, but also the saving. It's just such a massive thing. So before we wrap up, Paul, because I've got this interesting question. This came out on the workshops. I'm going to point this to you on the spot. Could your Claude app buy the meat from Aldi, the fruit and vegetables from Morrison's? I'm reading this off my sheet here. The groceries from Sainsbury's. In other words, could it go to a multitude of different supermarkets? And where would you see the benefit in doing that?
Well, I already have to do that. So the reality is, being an Aldi shopper, there's stuff you just can't get. So I have to go to like a Tesco superstore, you know, like one of the massive ones. Yeah. So 100%, you could always, so you know how you talked about fussy eaters and preferences, you could say in your context, I prefer fresh fruit and vegetables from Morrison's, right? So that's just part of its instructions. It's just instructions, isn't it? So if you think about delegating it, if you were to tell a human being where you want them get your stuff from, you'd say, I want my fresh meat from the butcher's. I want my vegetables from, say, Morrison's, and I want you to get everything else at Aldi as an example, right? Right here, right now, that's just 3 shopping lists. And you would literally load it up by store, and you would take the time to drive around and go to these different things. Now, that's not the most efficient, but if that's what you want it to do, 100% it can do it, and it will give you cost per store. The second thing is, obviously, if we talk about a world or a roadmap thing, if you had API integrations into these delivery mechanics, or then equally you could do it as long as your butcher's delivered an X, Y, Z. But there's absolutely no reason why, if you shop at one of the big 4 supermarkets, obviously Aldi, as far as I know, don't do home delivery, but there's nothing stopping you loading all this into a Tesco basket, getting it to the point of checkout, but not checking out and doing the human in the loop review as well, because I wouldn't trust it to get everything right 100%. Sometimes we had a thing in there called Chinese cat, and I was like, what is that? And it was supposed to be some form of Chinese food and cat food. So yeah, it's not perfect, but you're the human in the loop. That's the point. And so in answer to the question, yes, 100% it can take into account any context instruction you give it. So think of it like you're telling another human to do the job, and then just tell it what the instructions are. And I think the thing is, what this actually does is, we talked about how exhausting it is to think about all this stuff all the time, which is one of the reasons people don't cook and don't prepare meals, is because it can be exhausting for some people and their personalities. It can be exhausting, so they just don't even, they're stuck. They don't even contemplate cooking. But what it answers is, should I buy this? What am I cooking tonight, and what do I need from the shop? And I still do go to convenience stores. I went to one last night, not for anything that was necessarily missing out on the meal planner, but because we were making homemade pizzas and someone wanted pepperoni, and I added it because it's a UPF. So I was like, okay, I'll go and get you some pepperoni. So the only other thing I wanted to add in quickly to wrap up was, I'm happy to say it, I'm reading a book called Ultra Processed People by Chris Van Tulken. Have you come across this?
I haven't.
Oh my God! Only read it if you want to change what you read. But it's a fascinating book. It's a bit too intelligent for me. It's very medical and grounded in science. But he's got an amazing podcast. He's one of the he was in a kids TV show on CBeebies and stuff with his brother. I think about doctors. He's a GP. He's more than that. He's a medical doctor or whatever. Anyway, so I've built into this a UPF scanner. I couldn't find on the App Store.
Wow.
All I could find was nutritional scores. So there's a really good app I'm using right now called Yuka, Yuka. You scan a barcode and it will tell you out of 100, a nutritional score, like red, amber, green. And so you scan something like, say, spaghetti, and it'll say 80 out of 100. But what it isn't telling you is anything about, does this contain UPFs? So instead, as part of my meal planner, because I'm trying to eliminate UPFs, I now stand like a sado in the store, and I pick it up, and I religiously scan the ingredients, checking it that everything it's made of exists in my kitchen cupboard. As a result, things that I thought were healthy, I just avoid at all costs. There's loads of stuff that you just assume, it's not a whole food, it's minimally processed, but you just assume that it doesn't have UPFs. And some of the premium products on the shelf have UPFs and the lower brands don't. And it's been such an eye-opener. So I built that in. I built a camera fillet, and it was all in the PRD. So I can stand in the score, I can scan my barcode on something if I had any queries. So there's often an ingredient that sounds natural, but it's not. And those are the things that catch you out. Obviously, if it's just like pasta and it's drum wheat and all this sort of stuff, then it's fine. But sometimes you pick up another identical pasta packet and it's got something in it, and you're like, why has it got all this stuff, additives, preservatives, all that sort of stuff? So yeah, to wrap it up, that's where I've taken it right now, as a UPF scanner, a meal planning app, into one solution that I run on my phone, just for me right now. But you can see what we've tried to do in this episode is, one, hopefully educate you about food waste, hopefully educate you about how much money can be saved if you're not throwing it away. Hopefully you can relate to that. How you can do it really manually, how you can do it really using the most basic AI tools, and then also how you can build yourself some of this software. But it all goes through software development life cycle of idea, MVP, iterate, keep tweaking it, and then build something that's of value at the end. And I think, so it does overlap all the intro, all the start about what this is. And we didn't talk about AI or anything for a long time. That's the history of what we've done. And we touched on it in a previous episode, and we just thought, you know what, let's go and revisit it, because we've gone on a pace since we originally spoke about, haven't we, Sean? And now you've had great success. Sean's got a really cool photo of him in the supermarket doing his weekly shop. So
remember, we haven't built anything revolutionary here. We're simply connecting a few existing tools together, and used AI to make everything or everyday life a little easier. That's where a lot of opportunities lie for businesses and families alike. So if you built your own AI meal planner, like Paul and I have ideas, I'm going to certainly rob his app now, on how we can improve it, or would like the prompts and workflows we discussed today, we generally love to hear from you. And if you've got a clever way of automating the shopping basket straight into Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Aldi's, Morrison's or Ocado, definitely get in touch, because that's the one area we're still experimenting with, as Paul was saying. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share this podcast today with someone who spends half their life wondering what's for dinner tonight. And until next time, stay curious, keep experimenting, and we'll see you on the next episode of CTRL-ALT-DEV.